You're welcome. Today is her Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness meeting. It's also May Day. So happy May Day to you. And for those of you who are in the Northern Hemisphere, that means that it's the beginning of summer. It's it's the return of summer. We can see maybe summer may be arriving soon. For those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, uh, I'm sorry to inform you that winter is soon upon you. So, oh, the cat is going to come join me. What a delight. Okay. She has a hard time just relaxing, so she has to walk around a lot. So last week, I got such a nice response. I was surprised. So many people like the strange story about the universe in the hill. And so this week, um, really, I have no way to follow up on that. So I'm sorry, it will be all downhill from there. But what I would like to talk about this week is start with something from Ramana Maharishi, who you can't go wrong if you start with Ramana. So Ramana was, most of you, maybe some of you, maybe you know the story. If I've told the story before, I usually don't tell it very well. I don't think today will be an exception to that. It'll probably still not be told very well, but I'll tell it again just for those who might not know the story. So Ramana was born into a family, as most of us are, and when he was, I think, about 16, his father died. And so, as you might imagine, this was a challenge, and particularly at that time in that culture, it was a very difficult situation. And this, so it affected Ramana, and he began to question, what is this? What is everything? It was just sort of like, what is going on? And so he questioned this very deeply and sincerely, and at one point it became clear to him he had to go, and so he left. He got on a train and went, I think, north, and arrived at Arunachala, which is a sacred mountain in India. And he sat, and he didn't leave. And much time went by, and he had stopped talking. He would just sit in silence. And his mother, at a certain point, found where he had gone, and she arrived there, and she was somewhat distraught, and she pleaded with him to come home. And he was not speaking, and so he didn't respond to her. And this was, I think, increasingly distressing to her, as you might imagine. And some people had gathered around him by this time. They had recognized that there was something very special about him, and so people were viewing him as a teacher of sorts. And so some of these people who were around him, they urged him. They said, "She's very distressed. Would you please respond to her in some way?" And so he wrote, and what he wrote was, and I'll paraphrase, but he said something to the effect of that everything everything is destined to be as it is, or as it will be, and so what will be cannot be other than that, and try as you might, that's the way it will be, and what won't be will not be, try as you might. And so I don't think this really helped her out very much. I think she was still very distressed, but she left. And then some while later, I think it was maybe several years later, she returned. She had determined that that Ramana was where she needed to be, and so she lived the rest of her life there, serving in the ashram. And so, why am I telling this story? Just a lot of words to make this one point, which was that Ramana said, or wrote rather, that what will be, and what won't be, regardless of what you try, in contrary to what is to be or want or not to be. So this sounds well. So maybe you hear that however you hear that. Hopefully it makes sense at least. It's not that shocking, I suppose, if you consider this is pretty kind of standard from Indian philosophy. It's sort of fatalistic, destiny is everything. And so, okay, so that hopefully makes sense to you. Now, why am I saying this? Well, I just want to start with that, because if Ramana says this or writes this, then I think it's something that we should take note of. And so what do we do with that? That's the question. There's such a it's one of those things that I think for many of us is challenging, because this is a message that is delivered by many teachers and speakers, and I think most of the time when it's received somewhat badly, because our tendency is to say, okay, but then what? What do I do with that? Because I have to do something with it. And what do I do if what you're telling me is that there's really nothing that I can do that will change anything, that everything is going to be exactly how it's going to be? Then how do I live with that? How does one behave or act or live, if one accepts that is true? Because it maybe has a tendency to be interpreted in a way that's somewhat depressing or nihilistic or negative. And so I want to propose that we could understand it in a different way that might be a positive way to understand it, because I'm quite certain that Ramana was not attempting to deliver some kind of devastation to us in truth. I mean, maybe maybe a devastation to what's false, but not a devastation to the truth. And also keep in mind that there's another component that goes along with this that is often maybe forgotten about or overlooked, or maybe it's taken for granted by some who will say these kinds of things. So there's an assumption that's taking place for many of us most of the time, it's invisible to us. We don't even know we're making this assumption, but we assume that I am this person, this personality, this narrative of this lifetime, this character, and that I am the actor, I am the doer of my life, and that I have that what is right and possibly what is my obligation or responsibility is to experience as much pleasure as I possibly can. That seems to be the purpose of life, is just to attain as much pleasure as is possible. And so if that's what's assumed to be true, then it would make sense that I would want to know, how do I conduct myself so as to be successful in that? And from that perspective, if somebody suggests that whatever is to be, it will be, and there's nothing that anybody can do about that, then that seems to be quite I don't know what the word would be. Unpleasant news in the face of this assumption that's being made. And so then it would make sense that if I believe that my purpose of my life is just that I'm in charge, that I am this character and I'm in charge, and that my responsibility is to gain as much pleasure, all temporary, by the way, in parentheses, as possible, then it seems like bad news if somebody delivers this message that actually it's all as it will be, and it couldn't be otherwise, and it can't be otherwise, and wasting your time and energy trying to do something else. However, what if the assumption that's being made is incorrect? And that might seem crazy, and it might seem like, because it might seem totally obvious and just, it might seem obvious that I am this character and that the purpose of my life is to gain as much pleasure as possible. It might just seem like, how could it be anything else? But again, if that seems obvious, it's not. It's only because there's the assumptions being made, and the assumption is invisible to you. But if we step back before the assumption, just be willing to entertain the possibility that maybe you're mistaken. If you're if you can admit that you haven't got it all figured out, and that you're not completely satisfied, and you're not completely we'll just say satisfied in every regard in your life. If you're still looking for something else, if you feel insecure in some way, uncertain, hesitant, then maybe it would be worth admitting that much, and being willing to consider that you could discover something that might be useful to you. But in order to discover something that might be useful to you, you have to be willing to let go of, at least temporarily, any assumptions that you're making. Because if you continue to hold on to the assumptions, then you blind yourself, and then you're limiting yourself as to what could be discovered. Hopefully that makes sense. Because if what it is that needs to be discovered, or what's valuable, is contrary or in conflict with some assumption that's being made, as long as you hold on to the assumption, you're not open to seeing or discovering what it is that is here for you, that could improve your experience, or improve your life. So just, I'm inviting you for this little while, just be willing to loosen your grip on the assumptions about who you are and what life is about and what you think you've got figured out. Again, if you're absolutely 100% certain, beyond a doubt, about something, well, then you probably ought to question that. But if you've questioned it and you're so certain that there's no use in questioning it anymore, then fine, then you're certain. But about everything else that you're not so certain about, if you're 99% certain, but not 100% certain, then just be willing to loosen the grip on that assumption for now. You can grip it later, right? You could make a note about it, and then after this meeting, you can go review your notes about all the assumptions you want to grip again, and you can grip them again. But just for now, let's let them all go so that we can start to explore some other possibilities. So Ramana's invitation, somewhat famously, I would say, I mean, not somewhat famously, because not everybody, not that famous, but somewhat famously, is to inquire into who you are. So to ask this question, who am I? And so this is one possibility, is that if we want to know who we are, rather than making the assumption about who we are, we could actually look directly and ask, who am I? And so that's one possibility. And again, you know, if Ramana recommends it, then I would say it's probably a good recommendation. So I'll offer that to you, that you can explore that. For the purpose of this talk, I'd like to propose some things to you. So now I'd like to slightly switch gears. This is like, you know, we brought in some heavyweights today. We brought in first Ramana, and now Krishna. So two heavyweights, if you want, you know, authorities. So now we're going to switch gears to Krishna. So Krishna, now maybe you're not familiar with Krishna. Krishna is, I don't remember which, is one of the avatars of Vishnu. So particularly well known, I would say, as from the Mahabharata, and that's the context I want to talk about Krishna today. So Krishna is he's an avatar, which means, so what is an avatar? An avatar means that this is my definition, means that the supreme being has taken birth. So you know, like I suppose Jesus would be another avatar. To, you know, contextualize it for people who don't really have a context to understand what an avatar is, I'd say Jesus is an avatar. So Krishna is an avatar, and Krishna is he's a cousin, I think. He's a cousin of these five brothers, who the Pandava brothers, these brothers who have been cheated out of their kingdom by some other cousins. So there's this great battle that's about to take place. You know, things have gotten to this point, and all along the way, Krishna has been hinting, and sometimes just expressly stating that all of this is by design. By whose design? By Krishna's design. And so when various characters are distressed about things, they're saying, but this seems like I have some conflict about this. I don't think we should be fighting with our cousins. And Krishna will say, yeah, but it's by design. I've designed it this way. And so now it's a long story. It's one of the longest, it's probably the longest, it is the longest story ever told. And so about at the midway point in this story, this great battle is taking place. So a lot has preceded this, and you'll just have to take it from me for now that there couldn't be any other way. I mean, they've tried so many other ways around this, but it's come to this point now that this battle is about to take place. And so the one set of cousins have got their army on the one side, and the Pandavas have their army on the other side. And so and Krishna has Krishna offered it at a certain point, because he's cousins to both of these sides, but he's particularly fond of the Pandavas. And so he says, I'm not going to fight, he says, but I will offer 10,000 of the best soldiers that you could ever find to one of you, and to the other one of you, I'll offer myself. But remember, I'm not going to fight. And so the Kauravas, the evil cousins, they say, well, we'll take the 10,000 soldiers. They're giddy, ooh, we got the 10,000 soldiers, we got the good deal here. And Arjuna, who's the middle brother of the Pandavas, he says, I want Krishna. And so Krishna is now he's aligned with the Pandavas, and he's not gonna fight, but he'll drive the chariot of Arjuna, the middle brother. So Arjuna now is on the chariot with Krishna, and the whole battlefield is all organized. The two sides are lined up and in their configurations, and it's just a massive thing. I did the calculations. It's like the Pandavas have just shy of 1 million, probably like 800,000 soldiers on their side, and the Kauravas have over 1 million, probably like one and a quarter million soldiers on their side. So it's a big battle about to take place. It's no small thing. And just as this is all about to happen, Arjuna says, Krishna, take me out to the front line there, and I want to see these people who I'm about to fight with. So Krishna takes him out there, and Arjuna looks and he sees it's his grandfather, and it's his cousins, and it's his uncles, and it's his teachers. So all of his beloved people, they're all his family. And he is overwhelmed, and he lays down his weapons, and he just is distressed. He says, I won't fight. I can't. There's no way that I can do this. And so Krishna says, and this is the context for the Bhagavad Gita, which is, you've probably heard of the Bhagavad Gita. If you haven't, then you should. It's a good one. But this is the Bhagavad Gita. Means the song of God. And this is Krishna is now talking to Arjuna, and he's explaining to Arjuna what Arjuna must do. So he says, look, you must do this. This has all been arranged and organized by me. And he says, and he shows Arjuna a vision, and in this vision, which is he shows Arjuna his Krishna's true form, as it were, and he gifts Arjuna with this divine sight so that Arjuna can see Krishna as he really is. And so Arjuna sees Krishna as unimaginable infinity, and everything that is, all universes within universes within universes, and galaxies being swallowed, and all kinds of things. And one of the things that he's shown in this vision is Krishna has thousands of heads and thousands of mouths, and some of them are swallowing all of the cousins on the other side, all of those who are lined up to do battle with Arjuna's army. And Krishna explains to him, they're already killed. I've already done it, and you're just the instrument. He says, whether you take the action or not, it's already been done. So you should do what's right. This is what you've been made for. This is why you exist. And he explains, among many other things, he says that it's better by far to do your own, the term that's used is Dharma, but we could understand it as to be yourself as you are meant to be, rather than to do that imperfectly. That's better than being somebody else, doing somebody else's Dharma perfectly. And I've talked about this before because I think that's such an important point. So again, it's better to do your own Dharma, to be yourself imperfectly, than it is to be somebody else perfectly. And so, he's explaining to Arjuna, you're in this story, there's a caste system. Arjuna is born into this Kshatriya caste, and the Kshatriyas are warriors. That's what they're meant to be. That's what they do. So that's their purpose. And he says, look, your Dharma is to be a warrior. That's what you were born for. If you don't do that, then you're failing in being who you're meant to be. Now, what does any of this have to do with us? Why am I mentioning any of this? So Ramana is saying, whatever is going to be, and whatever is not going to be, is not going to be. Breaking his mother's heart, by the way, but so this is the opening part of today's talk, is this sort of piercing comment, piercing thing that says, cuts right through, and it just gets right to the heart of this. And it says, look, wake up. What are you doing? Who are you? What is all of this? What are you flapping your gums for and flailing your arms about for? What are you hoping to accomplish? Because if you're trying to accomplish something that's not meant to be, that's not in alignment with who you are, if it's not in alignment with the truth, then you're wasting your time. And perhaps worse than that, because this is my commentary, okay, perhaps worse than wasting your time, because if you start to understand the context that Ramana is talking about, this starts to make sense. And Krishna talks about this too in the Bhagavad Gita, that because Ramana uses this term, he says, he talks about prarabdha karma. And so prarabdha karma is that karma is, let me take a step back, karma means action that bears fruit. So it can be understood as either the action or the fruit that's born from the action. And the karma, therefore, every action has some prior action, which is its cause. Right, so this action that I take now, right, I lift this up and I take that action, and that causes some future action, right? Like I'll have to urinate later. And so every action has a cause and produces a result. That result is going to be another cause, because it's all action. So each action causes another action. So Newton talked about this. I think it's the third law of motion. It says that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So the same general idea, or the other ones in that, there's something about, and this is like, I think, laws of thermodynamics. It says energy is neither created nor destroyed, but it just changes form. So the same kind of idea. And so we see that everything that happens is really just the result of something else that happened in the past, and that everything that happens now will be the cause of something that happens in the future. And so prarabdha karma is that karma, those actions which have actually been released. So there are other types of karmas, and there's something that's talked about in terms of like a bow and arrow. So, but we can understand prarabdha karma is the arrow that's already been released. So it's in motion. So it's going to find some target. Something is going to happen as a result of this. It's inescapable. And so Ramana is saying, in response to his mother, more specifically, he says that all of these things that are happening are the result of prarabdha karma. You think that it's something else, but that's what it is. And so, so if we start to think about this, open ourselves up a little bit, we realize that this invitation, it goes really deep. It asks us, it's not just this thing that's like on the surface, we can interpret it in some ways. It's like arrogant or unkind. You know, this is his mother. Shouldn't he treat her with more kindness or something? You can have all kinds of judgments about it. But if we actually just receive it in a open way, it really is penetrating. It really has a very powerful effect if we allow it, because it starts to really invite us to notice, as I've already said, who am I? What is all of this? Who do I think I am? And what am I doing? What am I hoping to achieve? And is that true? Is it actually happening in the way that I think it is? And what is going to be the result of all of this? So back to that thing that I was saying earlier, where I was saying, possibly worse than just wasting our time, if we don't actually have clarity on who we are and what all of this is and what the truth is, then it might be worse than just wasting our time, because there's this other idea, and this is this idea of the transmigration of the soul, so the reincarnation, right? So the idea is that you are a soul. So you think I'm this person, this personality, this character, this body, I was born at this time into this family, and I'm going to die at some point in the future. And so I'm just this thing in between. And if you look at it in that way, then it kind of, the only reasonable conclusion you can come to is that, well, I don't know, a reasonable conclusion to come to then would be, as I said earlier, that, well, the only point of my life, the purpose of my life is just to get some temporary pleasure, because I'm just this temporary thing. And why not? What else am I doing? You know, if I'm not happy in this moment, then I should get happy by doing something that's going to get me some temporary pleasure. But if we question whether that's accurate, and we start to open to this possibility that's being suggested, that I am a soul, and that the soul is transcendent of this character in this lifetime, and that this soul is, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the soul takes a body like a suit of clothes, and puts them on, and then discards them later and puts on another suit of clothes. And so if we understand, are we open to this possibility that I am the soul that is transcendent of this body, mind, and personality, that wears these like a suit of clothes, then maybe I start to see things in a different way. So the suggestion is that the karmas go with the soul. And so when this suit of clothes is discarded at some point, and this body and personality is discarded, then the soul takes a new one. But the karmas attached to the soul go along. And so whatever the result of these karmas will bear fruit at some future point. Okay, so this is the context why I'm saying it might be worse than just wasting time. Because if you think, again, if you just think I'm just this person, this personality, this body, this character, and what do I care? You know, I get out at some point whenever I want. I off myself, I'm done. I can get out. It's my get out of jail free card. But maybe not. So we should be careful. And if we understand, if we accept that what Ramana is saying is true or might be true, then it's caution saying, what are you doing? Because if what you're doing now is going to bear fruit, then what fruit will this bear? And is that what you want? So, and then we might say, but how does this go along with if everything is already just predestined and can't be otherwise, then do I have any choice at all? Well, I don't think that Ramana said that you don't have any choice at all. I think that I don't think these are completely incompatible views. I think that there can be choice, but the choice is like, I mean, think about it like this. You're on a train that's going to a certain place. That part we'll say is like, that's the prarabdha karma. You're going to that place. You're on the train. It's going there. While you're on the train, there are choices that can be made. And those choices are going to influence various aspects of this experience. You could derail the train, you could hijack the train, you could get yourself into all kinds of trouble. You're still going to end up where you're going, but you might delay that. You might make it much more difficult for yourself. All kinds of things might happen as a result of your choices there. So the suggestion here, I think, at least my suggestion, but I'm understanding Ramana's invitation here, is get clear on where are you going? Who are you at all levels? So recognize that who you are as a soul, transcendent of all of these ideas that you have about yourself. And beyond that, that this soul that you are is non-different from the universal soul. So this is what's being pointed to, that there's a sense that I'm this individual soul, but this individual soul is non-different from the universal soul. And that realization, not just as an idea, but as an actual direct realization, is what's referred to, at least in some cases, is what's referred to as enlightenment. And this is our liberation, so that you're liberated from this endless, otherwise endless cycle of rebirth. Okay, so, but first step is to wake up and realize that I've been living as though I was this person. I was living as though I was in charge of my life, that I had complete control over everything. And I was ignorant of a larger context. I was ignorant of actually who I really am. I didn't really start to question who I really was, but the invitation is to then start to question that and look and see, who am I? And what is all of this? And am I really making choices or not? I've talked about this and written about this before. When I was a kid, I would, in the grocery store, there was a arcade game, several of them, that could be played for money. Put in a quarter and get a chance to play the game. And so when I would go to the grocery store with my mom, I would stand, sometimes I would stand in the entrance to the grocery store watching the video game, which had a sequence that would play that would try to lure in youth to put money into the machine so they would play and make it look like it's fun, so you could see how the gameplay would go. And I would pretend like I was playing. I'm sure other kids would do the same thing. Kids who didn't have quarters would stand there and pretend like they're playing. And so this is a bit like what a lot of the time most of us are doing, is we're pretending like we're in control of this. And so it works so long as you want to deceive yourself, but once you want to be awake to what's actually going on, you realize, oh, I'm not really in charge of this, it's happening. So that's the invitation then, is to start to look and see, am I really actually all that happy with all of this? Or am I maybe just sort of making myself miserable with this delusion that I'm in control of things that I'm actually not in control of? You start to question, okay, so you have a thought that you want something. Okay, that's interesting. But where did the thought come from? You have a feeling. That's interesting. But where did that feeling come from? If you start to look carefully, you'll realize that those things are not coming from where you think they're coming from. Or put another way, you can start to see that who you think you are is not where those things are coming from. That they're arising from something that's not hadn't been looked at carefully enough in the past, but you can look at it carefully now. So okay, so Ramana's invitation is quite radical. He's inviting us to look directly and see, who am I? And it's very powerful. And as I've said, I'm suggesting that you can do this and it will be useful to you. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita maybe is in some ways just as radical, because he spells it out quite clearly. He says some of the things that I've been saying. He says, you think that you're doing all of these things, but actually all the things that are happening are the result of these. He describes it as these fundamental energies of creation. They call them the gunas, these three aspects of energy that are combining to produce all the various phenomena that exist. But he's just saying, look, all this stuff is happening, and everything that takes place is a karma that produces another karma down the line, and that produces another karma down the line. It's all just these things bouncing around, combining and recombining in all of these ways. And who you are, he says, is you are the soul, and even more than that, you are the cosmic soul. And when you realize that, you are one with me, Krishna, the universal soul, then this is the end of this cycle of birth and rebirth. So he's just as radical on that level, but he also suggests, I think, a maybe more accessible and practical idea from many of us. So not to let us off the hook so easily, because I still think that it's useful and important for us to question, who am I? But also, Krishna says, oh, maybe along with that, here's another thing that you can do for all the times that you're not actively questioning, who am I? You can also, here's another thing that you can take hold of that will help you practically. Because remember, he's talking to Arjuna, and Arjuna is here in this, he's distraught, he's about to slaughter all of his relatives. And he's thinking he can't do this because this is wrong. I can't kill these people. But Krishna has given him a pep talk, and he's explaining to him that that that's the wrong way to look at this, actually. Now, just to be clear about this, this is not an invitation to go out and murder your relatives, although maybe sometimes you think that would be nice, but it's not what this is about. We want to understand this metaphorically, okay? Or so it's talking about there's a battle that's within us. There's something within us that has that is taking place, okay? So just look at it all as something happening within you. And we sometimes we're like Arjuna, where there's something happening within us and we say, I can't do this. So just notice that, look within yourself and see how that's true. Sometimes you have these conflicts, these battles taking place within yourself. And actually, there's something that is ultimately ordained to take place. Okay, there's a right and a wrong, a good and a bad, a light and a dark that's determined within you in this context. You actually know that there's a truth here and there's a falsehood. You know that you're being invited to tell the truth about who you are in this context within yourself when it comes to this issue, whatever this is within yourself. And so you have to be willing to take action, to take a side, to be definitive about this. You can't be wishy-washy about it, because as long as you're wishy-washy about it, what's happening is that this conflict is continuing to fester. Okay, so it doesn't go away. It doesn't get better as a result. In the context of the Bhagavad Gita, again, there's these two sides, and the one side led by this fellow Duryodhana. Duryodhana has been given every chance possible to do the right thing, and he's just through and through, he's evil. So within yourself, you have to see that there are these things where if you just keep ignoring it or just trying to cover it up or deny it, it doesn't go away. Like this fellow Duryodhana, he doesn't go away. He just keeps getting worse. And so Krishna is inviting us to tell the truth about it. And he makes this point to Arjuna. He says, look, when what you're doing here is false, it's wrong, it's unethical, it's immoral, it's unspiritual, it's the wrong thing. And Arjuna says, like, what are you talking about? I'm faced with killing these people. That's wrong. It's wrong to kill them. And he says, but what you're trying to do is avoid taking action. And he says, and that's false. Because if you say, I won't take action, you're a liar. You can't help but take action. He says, as long as you're alive, you're taking action. So if you deny that, if you say, I won't take action, you're a liar. He says, we're faced with many difficult situations in our lives, but you're a liar if you say, I'm not going to take action. If you hide your head in the sand. He says, you've taken this life because you are here to resolve this thing, exactly this thing that's happening. There's no mistake about it. And you know within you, and at the deepest level, what's the truth. Why? Because Krishna is here telling you, in case you're in doubt, Krishna, the universal soul, is laying it all out on the table. Krishna says, look, in case you weren't clear about this, Arjuna, those fellas over there, they have chosen the wrong side. They're on the wrong side. They are against what is right, and they want to kill you. And you have to stand up, and you have to take the right action. And I, Krishna, have already killed them. You're just the instrument now. And so in that same way, we're being invited within ourselves. Again, this isn't to go out on a killing spree, please. I'm not advocating for that, but just within yourself to stand up for and take the right action, to know who you are, what is true, and to be clear about that and definitive about that and decisive, and not to be wishy-washy and say, oh, but I can't and I won't, and I'm going to hide my head in the sand, and it's too difficult and it's unpleasant and I feel like I'm in a bind. I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. He says no excuse, because as long as you keep putting it off, it's only going to fester, it's only going to get worse. And if you play this false narrative and delude yourself, you'll only end up suffering worse, because you'll be to take another birth and you'll have worse circumstances. Why? Because if you weren't willing to take the action now, then clearly you need to feel the pain a little bit more in order to cause you to actually take a stand and do what needs to be done. And so it's not, oh, woe is me, I'm such a victim, I can't believe this is happening to me, this is unfair. No, this is a direct result of your failure to take action, to have clarity about who you are. So, as usual, a lot of words, maybe even less clear than usual, though, and possibly because it's a big subject, and possibly also because it needs to be left somewhat open, so that you can so that you will puzzle over it. So because it's an invitation rather than it's not a thing to memorize and then you can answer the right thing on the test, because that doesn't give you the results. Is the results that you want have to be living results, and in order to have the living results, you have to live the answer, and in order to live the answer, it has to be a living inquiry. So has to be provocative and causing you to look at it and keep looking at it and keep looking at it and just keep looking at it, rather than arriving at some answer that you can circle and say, I've got it, because that's a dead answer that doesn't give you the real results. So if all of this has left you scratching your head and more puzzled and confused than when we began, then I hope that's a good thing. Could not be a good thing. Could be that I've failed completely, but I'll have to trust that I have succeeded. And so if you're confused, it's a good confusion, but you'll know that it's a good confusion because it is provoking you to question, to look. And so what specifically might you be questioning? You might be questioning, who am I? You might be questioning, what is the purpose of my life? You might be questioning, are there things that I have been shirking, responsibilities that I've been shirking? Is there anything that where I've been hiding my head in the sand, where I've been failing to take decisive action, where I've been failing to take a stand within myself, or maybe outside, but start within, okay? So these are the things that I would suggest you might be questioning, and see if you're in any way unhappy, dissatisfied, frustrated. Then let that be an invitation, an opportunity for you to, again, look at these things. And so just notice when you experience the frustration, discouragement, unhappiness, dissatisfaction, anger, then just notice what your usual response is, your usual reaction, and just see what that gives you, what the usual outcome of that is, which ultimately won't be desirable. And then start to, my invitation to you is that you could start to then use those opportunities to begin it as a an impetus, I guess, to start to ask these questions. Again, what are the questions? Who am I? What am I doing? What am I hoping for here? Because a lot of the time, well, not a lot of the time, all of the time in those situations, what I'm confident that you'll find, if you look honestly, is you'll find that you've been on autopilot. You were making some assumptions about who you are, and those were unhelpful and false assumptions. And that those are what are leading to this increasing dissatisfaction, unhappiness, pain, discomfort, and so forth. And so the opportunity is then to use those exact same situations that up to now have been perceived to be the problem. Those exact situations become the switch, the reminder, so that you can begin this living inquiry, and you can start to look and see, again, who am I? What am I doing? What am I hoping for? And then I'll just sort of punctuate the whole thing with this one final piece, which is that what Krishna's invitation, the practical piece is, he says, okay, look, so all of that that's very powerful, that's very effective, it's going to deliver you very good results, but it's also sometimes when we're in a pinch, as we often feel that we are, then we're not sure exactly how to do all of that, because that's all so open-ended, and it's maybe takes a little while before we start to have any level of comfort with all of that and know how to do anything with that, because it's so actually different than how we normally approach our lives, because that's completely reorienting ourselves. So in the meantime, whenever we're feeling that we're in a pinch and we're not sure what we should be doing, and we're feeling like this reactivity within ourselves, and we feel like we might implode or explode, he says, look, here's how to do it. He says, take action, and whatever action you take, surrender the fruits of that to me. To who? To God, to the universal spirit, to the divine, to Jesus, to Mother Mary, to the great goddess, to Mother Nature, to, hopefully you get the idea, to that supreme being. You just offer it. You say, I offer this, I'm whatever the fruits of this, good or bad, I just offer them to the divine. Just make them as an offering. You just say, I take this action, and I'm not looking for anything for myself in this. I'm just offering this entirely to God. So again, in a pinch, that straight from that heavyweight Krishna's mouth, you just take the action. Don't be a fool and say, I won't do anything, because of course you're doing something. You can't help but do something. He said, so be clear about it. Take some action. Don't be wishy-washy about it. Do your very best and offer the fruits of it to God. Just say, the good or bad of this, I offer to God. Whatever it may be. If it's really, really good, I offer it to God. I'm not looking for anything for myself from this. And if it turns out terribly, well, I've given it to God, so it's not on me. So that's it for today. like I said, it's all downhill from after last week. I can't top that, I don't suppose. But hopefully this was provocative in a good way. So happy May Day to you. And I hope that it's lovely where you are. It's lovely where I am. And for those who are here live, I'm happy to stay on for Q&A. I'm going to end this recording now.